The more I read, the more I realize how incredibly difficult it is to finish a series well, to finish a series in a really satisfying way where threads are wrapped up nicely, but not so nicely that it all feels easy and convenient with a Deus Ex Machina, that the big bad is defeated in a satisfying way, that there's hope for the future, but not too much hope, that we can clearly see a direction that the story will continue in even though we've run out of pages, and that the characters, the plot, the world, that everything has had a satisfying arc without leaving too many questions, but leaving some. It's really hard. I've read quite a few series enders, and I'm finding it more and more difficult to find ones that are just really, really satisfying. So here's a list of 10 things, of 10 series that I thought ended very well. Also a shout out to FlexiSpot, the sponsor of today's video. We'll talk more about them in a bit. We're gonna kick it off with one of my favorite authors, Joe Abercrombie. I have read 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his books. Currently working on his second trilogy, and I have high hopes for this one because, oh my goodness, did I love the first book. But I have completed the first Law trilogy and I loved it. Set in a grimdark world with very morally gray characters. I think that's actually generous to call them morally gray. They do some real rotten things, but they're so human and you understand their motivations and you get it. You don't agree with it, but you get it. The first book, frankly, doesn't have much of a plot. It's a lot more of establishing, setting, world, tone, and characters, and it picks up a lot in book 2, but I understand why that would be maybe a turnoff for some people. But Abercrombie writes layered, nuanced, fascinating characters on his own level. So I still found it engaging all the way through. The characters individually have incredibly satisfying or devastating arcs, but they go through a lot in these 3 books. The villains, you will go through a journey with especially one character that you just don't know how to feel about until the moment, and then it's like, oh, I have been tricked too. I have been fooled and bamboozled along with you. Incredible, just ugh. But even the plot itself, I think Abercrombie is an author where you just don't know what you're gonna get from him because no one is safe, nothing is sacred, and anything could happen. But I really love that about his books. I love that even at times with certain plot points, you could even call it an anticlimax because the direction that you expect oftentimes is not the direction that's taken. Oftentimes you're gonna get disappointments, you're gonna get failures, you'll get victories too, don't worry, but you're gonna get all the other stuff too, which makes his books so unpredictable, which makes them incredibly satisfying for me because I just have to step back and say, wow, I can never predict what's going to come from Abercrombie. But at the same time, it's brutal, it's dark, it's terrible, but it's also satisfying in its own right. I love Abercrombie. Next up, let's do a couple recent loves of mine, starting with Lady Trent. Hey, that's not the first book. What? Starting with Lady Trent. So these are sci-fi fantasy. They focus on a woman named Isabella who is a naturalist. She is obsessed with dragons, studying them, understanding them better, and this takes us from technically, we get a little bit of her childhood, but really it takes us from her as a young woman in her 20s and through her life. This is written as a memoir of an old woman who's lived a life of adventures and discovery and opposition and hurdles. And this is her just looking at it all very bluntly, speaking extremely bluntly about, this is written in a Victorian era, speaking really bluntly about the sexism that she encountered, the pushback that she got as a female naturalist, as well as speaking bluntly about the people who helped her along the way, the people that were a hindrance, and herself, her own failings, her own mistakes, and it carries the air of someone who has proven herself already and had her works published, and so now she's ready to just tell you the truth. Sometimes you'll find her mocking herself and saying, I was proud I was indignant, I was an idiot. And at times you'll see her say, I assume if you're reading my memoirs, you've already read the publications and the essays, so you already know what I've done. So now let me tell you the truth. Like, now let me tell you how badly I failed, or how incredibly selfish this discovery was, or how I just stumbled into this, or whatever. And it has this, it's very empowering, it's very exciting, but it's also very funny, and her encounters with the dragons, especially in the later books, are thrilling. But we got to the end of her memoirs, and we got to the end of her adventures, and we got to see her kind of settle down, and the end of this section. And it was crazy because Isabella's fictional. She's not real. I don't know her, but I ended reading these 5 books feeling so satisfied and feeling just really, really proud of her. Like, I was so proud to see her having come so far and accomplished so much despite all the hurdles, and seeing her get what she deserved, get the recognition that she deserved, and the family and the academic and personal successes that she went through over those 5 books. I was so proud of her. It was such a satisfying ending. Next up, another recent read, we have Live Ship Traders. This is a very character-focused series. Ooh, all 3 that I've talked about have been. I'll talk about some fast ones next. Very character-focused, very slow-paced. This is a nautical fantasy following a town, Bingtown, but more specifically a trader family in this town, a family of traders. They trade is their profession. The head of the family at the beginning of the book, well, the inciting incident, I don't know if you could call it the beginning of the book, it takes a while for the inciting incident to occur. He dies, and their live ship, which is a ship made of wizardwood, it's sentient, it has a conscience and a personality, and it's independent thought and all that. It was supposed to be passed down in a certain kind of way. It wasn't. Big family conflict. And the story is a very personal one about this family. It's about the town of Bingtown that is crumbling, and the people that are still in the town trying to fight for that. It's about a young girl who is coming of age too fast and growing up too fast and getting into a lot of issues from that. I don't know, was that it's very good book, very good books. Anyway, I was really, really satisfied with the way things came together, especially with the way the world stuff came together, how everything was connected, how the characters that even aren't in this family, that I didn't even think were connected to this family, how they're connected to it all, the way the live ships and their story and how they come about and all that came together. And yeah, the action and the boom bang crash, all that was really good too. There is one major gripe that I have about the ending of the series that, ooh. But other than that one thing, the way everything came together and the way everything just ended so satisfyingly, I was very happy. I was very happy at the end of this trilogy. I have a big long video with my friend Literature Science Alliance where we talked for like an hour about the trilogy, if you have read it and are interested. Okay, I'm gonna switch to some fast-paced series for you, but first I wanna talk to you about today's sponsor, FlexiSpot. I just got a FlexiSpot Pro Plus standing desk E7 and I love it. This desk is really sturdy, really sleek, and so versatile. You can program it to your preferred standing height and your preferred sitting height so that with just a touch of a button, it's exactly where you want it to be. Which means if you're listening to music while you're working, with a press of a button, you can raise it up and have a little dance party, and then when the music cools down, with just another press, you're back to sitting mode without interrupting work. Plus it has a lock, so if you have little minions in your home that can't help but press buttons, they're ineffectual. It also has a charging port and embedded cable tray management. I got the bamboo desktop, which I think is just so pretty, but it's also eco-friendly and it's not easily scratched. I named my desk Olaf because he looks like snow and he arrived in the winter time. But if you use the link in my description, you can get $30 off of your purchase as well. Thank you to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you for checking FlexiSpot out. Okay, let's speed things up. So, some fast-paced series that had really good endings. We're gonna start with Red Rising. Full disclaimer, I did not like book one. It wasn't even that I thought it was just okay, I didn't like it. But because I have a couple of friends who love the series, I decided to give book 2 a try. I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed book 3 as well, and I thought that it had a really satisfying ending. Red Rising, the first book in the series as a whole, is really intensely loved here on BookTube. I think I am one of the few people that kind of has, yeah, it was good feelings about the series. So for me, I thought the series was very satisfying and I enjoyed it in the end, but it's definitely not one of my top series, but I am on an island. So many people on BookTube, this is in their top series. So basically what I'm saying is take my kind of lackluster feelings about book 1 and good feelings about book 2, about books 2 and 3, take it with a grain of salt because my goodness is a series loved. Anyway, it was really satisfying, and I think as far as characters go, there were some phenomenal character arcs. As far as relationships go, which is always more important to me than characters individually, characters together is always a better sell. The relationships in the series, very well done. There are twists and turns literally around every corner in this series. It keeps you on your toes constantly to the very end, and the way things resolved, came together, imploded, I thought was a really satisfying end to the series. Plus, I thought that as far as the darker themes of the series go, I think that Pierce Brown as an author grew so much as an author with his darker themes. To me, in book 1, I felt the dark themes came off as kind of cheap and therefore shock value, but as the series continued, it did not give me that vibe at all. It was handled with a lot of nuance and care, and I think that he really got his footing in the grim dark arena as the series progressed. I'm talking about the original trilogy here. I don't plan to continue on with the series simply because I liked it, but I didn't love it, but everybody else loves it, so I'm just gonna let everybody love it. And I liked it. It was good. But the ending was satisfying. It deserves to be on this list. Next up, Percy Jackson. This is a middle grade series about Greek mythology, sort of. It's about a half-blood, a boy, whose father is a god and his mother is a human, and he is half. And a summer camp that he goes to every year to train to be able to survive in this world that targets him. Plus he's dyslexic. Love that. Because I'm dyslexic, to be clear. Anyway, the series is very fast-paced. It's loaded with humor and with action and with friendships and with it's a wild, there's a lot of stuff going on here. But I found the ending really, really satisfying for Percy as a character, for how far he's come and for how much respect he's gained among the gods, for the side characters and the arcs that they had, for how characters that once betrayed you maybe deserve a little bit of second chance, characters that were corrupted, that just there were good things that happened in the end, but I think that it had all of the emotions that I really needed from a story like this. I thought that the themes really came full circle, and I was really proud of my kids. I was really proud of them by the time the series came to a close. And finally, my last fast-paced series on this list is gonna be Fullmetal Alchemist, which I have that too. Yep, that's somewhere. This is volumes 10 through 12. That's fine, hey? Fullmetal Alchemist is a manga series. Most of the manga series that I have read, I either have kind of mixed feelings about the ending or they're still ongoing. But Fullmetal Alchemist is finished, and I thought that the ending was phenomenal. There's a lot going on in this series, a lot going on with the antagonists, a lot going on with our main characters and their plight to get their bodies back. It's two brothers who have messed with alchemy in a way that they were not supposed to, and there were consequences. And now one of them is just a soul that's been tied to a suit of armor, and the other is, he still has most of his body, but one of his arms and one of his legs is missing. So they're looking to get their bodies back and restore their bodies the way they were, but in order to do that, they are uncovering a lot of really horrible things that are going on in the world, and they will not compromise their morals to get back what they want, and they will not participate in some of the things that are happening. There's a lot going on in this story. There's a lot of plot threads that are open that come to a close in this really big climactic way all at once. As far as all these different questions that I had and how they all got answered really together, how the characters that were from different areas and had different ambitions came together, and how it was all resolved was the perfect amount of sacrifice, loss, and found family growth, and just the solutions that they found. It was the perfect amount of just feel good, but also kind of hurts emotions. I was very satisfied with the ending of Fullmetal Alchemist. Next up, let's slow it down again with the original Mistborn trilogy. I'd say this is kind of middle of the road paced. It's got plenty of action, it has plenty of stuff that keeps the story moving, but it's also, I wouldn't call it traditionally a fast-paced novel. You probably have heard of Mistborn if you're on BookTube, because Sanderson is well loved among a lot of people on BookTube, and this is one of his most popular series. The ending of Mistborn it has some mixed reception. There are definitely some people that don't love the way that it ended. I fell into the camp of really, really loving it. Again, the mysteries that have been laid out for 3 books now, I loved the reveals. I loved how it came together. I love that with Sanderson's stories, you can figure it out alongside the characters. All the clues are there. And you can solve it too. So there were some things that it came together for me before it did for the characters, and there were other things that it didn't, and it was a shock. But it all made sense and it all worked. You have the perfect amount of hope and belief for what the future could be, as well as pain and sacrifice, and wasn't the happiest end for all the people. But I felt like it was so satisfying. I felt like it was a really good mixture of those emotions that you kind of want out of your ending. And it did a really good job of being a self-contained trilogy while still keeping the door open for more, which he did add more. Era 2 of Mistborn was just concluded, and that one's not on the list. Even though I really enjoyed the conclusion, it wasn't as self-contained as this one was, and I would have preferred for it to be more self-contained so that it felt like a ending to the series and less like, well, we kind of ended it, but really we're also beginning something else. And it doesn't make the list, but I still enjoyed the way Era 2 ended, and I enjoyed Era 2 overall. It was all good. Next up, we have Beartown. This is the only literary fiction on the list because most literary fictions that I read are standalone. But Beartown is a series. It is about a hockey town, and there are many, many characters that we follow. A character is raped by a hockey member, and it's the town's response. It's her family's response, it's his family's response, it's the people who are involved in the hockey team, it's people who people who respond well, it's people who respond terribly, it's how it affects everyone. It's a very close look into so many things, into so many different types of people, so many different types of responses, and how they each one affect. Did it need to be a trilogy? No. But was I happy to have 3 books of this? Yeah, which sounds really weird because of the topic matter, but it's about so much more than the inciting incident and the main thing that's being explored here, because there's so many things being explored here. There's family, there's friendships, there's abuse, there's trauma, there's other heavy topics. I don't want to dig into all of them, but yeah, there's a lot going on in these books. And it's always, Bachman is always about people. He's always about humans and how to examine these things more closely. This is an incredible trilogy. And while Book 3 was my least favorite of the 3, because I do feel like it was a bit indulgent. It was longer than it really needed to be. It was still excellent and a fantastic conclusion to the trilogy. Oh, I'm not gonna get the whole series out. Hang on. You get 1. Wheel of Time is next on the list. So there are 14 books. It's 14 and a half if you count the novella. I read the 14 books and I really enjoyed most of them. It starts off very much as an homage to The Lord of the Rings, and then it picks up and takes off and becomes its own thing. I had some mixed feelings about the series as a whole. There were definitely some things that I didn't love about it. I do have a review video that is spoiler-free talking about the series as a whole. Is it worth it? All that. It's definitely not for everybody, and it definitely has its flaws, but if you enjoy it, it is worth the ending, in my opinion. Rand, our main character, our reluctant chosen one, his arc in this series is intense. He goes through so much mentally as well as physically. And the conclusion of him and his comrades and how it all comes to pass. There's 14 books, how much can I really say? But the conclusion of how it all comes, I was really excited to find out, how are you going to resolve this? How are you going to be able to restore this world and this magic and this disconnect between men and women? And I was really, really pleased with the conclusion that we got. I thought, especially just the last book, I really I don't remember having a single complaint about the final book in the series. It wrapped up in a way that I thought was incredibly satisfying. And while this is not on my favorite series in the whole wide world list, it was well worth the read for me. Okay, we have one more book on this list. I forgot to mention this is a top 10 list. Hey, there's 10 of these. It's a top 10. There's one more book on this list, and then I also have an honorable mention. So, The Lord of the Rings, which is kind of a standalone and also kind of a series, depending on how you look at it. Tolkien meant for it to be one chunker, but the publishers decided no one wants to read that, so we'll make it 3. So you can consider it one or the other. For the purposes of this video, I'll consider it a series because I want to talk about it. I've heard complaint about the final book in The Lord of the Rings that after the climax, the falling action just lasted so long. Why was it so long? Like, the book should have ended so much further back than it did, but I just don't think so, and I don't think that's a popular opinion either. I think most Lord of the Rings fans are very pleased with how it ended. I am too. I think it was important for the themes of the story. I think it was important for Frodo's journey and for Sam's journey and for everything that they went through and for what the world went through to see it through as far as Tolkien saw it through. I have a lot of nostalgia on me for this series, but I don't care. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite series. I don't have very many complaints about it at all. And I love what these characters went through, how it shaped them, how it shaped the way they see the world, how it shaped their homes and their lives, how this journey that they went on affected the entire world and everybody in it. And I loved being able to see it through with them for as long as we saw it through with them. You probably don't need me to say much about this because this might be a story you know about, but this conclusion was very satisfying to me. Finally, a real quick honorable mention, because it's technically not a book, but it is book adjacent because there are books to it. Also, I talk about it all the time on my channel, so it's fine. It's Avatar! Avatar: The Last Airbender, my favorite show. It had such a good ending, didn't it? I had a video talking about it because most people like the ending, but a lot of people don't. And I wanted to talk about why I thought the ending was fantastic. So check that out if you feel like it. I love this series. I love near everything about it, including the ending. I was very pleased. I think that the ending that we got was exactly what we needed for a protagonist like Aang. Different protagonist, different ending. But for Aang, it was right. For the crew, for Team Avatar, it was wonderful. For everybody involved, not even Team Avatar, everybody else, all the people we met along the way, all the White Lotus, all of them. It was all exactly right. And I love it, always. So there you go, those are 10 series that I think, and plus Avatar, that I think had a fantastic ending. There are series on the list that I would hope that in a few years I could do this video again and say that they're on it too. Series that are currently ongoing that I'm loving but haven't been concluded yet. There are some series that I'm so sad will never make the series list. We'll never make this list because you should have stopped at 3 books, hitchhikers. That's the list. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like to keep up with what I'm reading week to week, I have weekly reading vlogs with spoiler-free discussions for what I'm reading. I also do in-depth discussions with other booktubers or just regular old spoiler-filled reviews for my favorite books that I read, all on the second channel, always linked in the description. Check that out if you want to. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on this channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays on the second channel. I'll see you again soon. Bye.